I'm an 18-year-old just getting into the world of copywriting. I'd really appreciate if you could talk more about choosing a niche slash sub-industry in the vast and diverse industry of copywriting. How do I know which one is the best for me? Should the niche being lucrative be the only important thing that I should factor in when making my decision?
Welcome to The Fix. Sit down with copywriting experts Nick O'Connor and Glenn Fisher as they review, discuss, and improve real-world copy sent in by you. This is The Fix.
We're talking about niching and whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, an indifferent thing, a pointless thing. What do you think?
Well, first of all, we're gonna use the English pronunciation rather than the American, right? So I'm gonna resist the urge to call it a niche.
Which niche you like?
No, it's niche. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing I'd say is, this would be my advice to anybody who is 18 and starting out in the world of work, never mind copywriting. I wouldn't make your decision based on how much money you think you could earn. That's a terrible way of thinking about things, just in general. My kids are too young, but like my younger cousins and stuff like that, and other people that have asked me for advice and they're going to university or whatever it might be, and they say, "Oh, you can earn a lot of money doing this." You just think, you're going to be miserable. You've got such a long life to live. And if you pick something purely based on money, you're just going to be miserable. The best way of, in my opinion, of earning lots of money is to find something that's genuinely a passion of yours that you really want to do and will get you out of bed in the morning. Glenn, have you frozen?
No, you froze briefly.
No, you froze. Sorry, it's half term. My kids have spent the week doing that. No, you did it. So you want to pick something that you're passionate about in general. I'm lucky, for instance, that this doesn't really feel like work to me. Some elements of my job feel like work. If I have to write, the fourth upsell in a funnel, and I don't really like doing that sort of stuff anyway, I have to do it. Okay, that feels like work. But the central proposition of writing about the world of finance in an interesting and cool way and trying to captivate people, that is fun to me. So
yeah, I'd also maybe think about it in the terms of, or how I like to think about it now, and I kind of backfitting this to my life. You've got to do something that you're going to do anyway, like as close as you can get to doing something that you're going to do anyway and get paid for something that you're going to do anyway. That's in the ballpark of where you should be aiming for your career and what you kind of learn to do. Because even on those like admin bits and like the elements of your job that you don't like, you're going to do them anyway. You can't stop yourself from doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of like, I've got to do this. So I'm going to, not got to do this. Someone's telling me. It's like, no, I inherently have to do this. You're looking for those emotions when it's kind of despite yourself stuff. If you can get paid for that, then you're in a good kind of ballpark.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I'd say, getting into the sort of realms of proper advice beyond the sort of condescending advice I've given so far, which is don't pursue money, try and follow your interests and the money will come. If you could excel at something that interests you, the money will come. That would be the formula, in my opinion. So the first thing I'd say, I think there's two things. There's niche and then there's format. That's the element. So, email copywriting, webinar writing, let's come to that second, because I think that's a big part of the decision-making process that isn't present in the question. But let's talk about niche first, since that's what the question was. I would say, you're 18, so your lived experience isn't vast yet. It may feel like it, but you haven't been a grown-up for that long, so you haven't necessarily gathered enough experience to make a decision yet. So I'd say your edge is going to be your personality, the things that you're interested in already. So first of all, look at your hobbies. Look at things you like to do already. If you're, well into going to the gym, okay, maybe that's an interest you can follow. if you're well into ice skating, see if there's an ice skating coach out there, whatever it might be. So start with your own life, because that's your edge. And it's also going to help you really understand the customers in those parts of the market. So that might be, a piece of advice that would be worth thinking about. What customer do you really understand? What buying behavior do you, already have a really good grasp of? Because if you start there, you can work backwards. Okay, well, what sorts of products do those people buy, or how do they buy those things? In the financial world, you see lots of people trying to get into the industry. They've never invested. I mean, I was the same when I started, so I succeeded in spite of this. Never invested, and half of them don't even really like investors. They're, sort of Bernie Sanders, Jeremy Corbyn type people. There's no problem with that. If that's what if you want to believe in all that nonsense, then believe in it. But that's going to really impede your ability to write well to your target customer, because you fundamentally don't respect who they are, or why they think the way they think about the world. So that's tough. So which customer do you understand? That would be maybe where to start. And as an 18-year-old, if there's not an interest that you have that you want to pursue, maybe your parents, are buyers of a certain type of product, or own a business that has a certain problem. Or who do you know around you who represents a target customer of a given market? And how can you use that knowledge to figure out how to sell to people? I mean, that's the kind of way you need to think about things, right?
Yeah, and I think that in that same little category is what do you like? Like, just look at it. We can get kind of vague because there's so many types of copywriting as well, and like, what does it mean to be a copywriter? But I think within that, looking at the areas of things that you enjoy, that you are interested in, that you understand the customer, you recognize yourself perhaps as a customer of that thing. What copy do you like? What do you look at and go, I wish I was writing that. I wish I was doing that. Those are, if you're going to niche down, those are the questions you want to be asking. Although, as you raised there, Nick, both you and I are essentially started out as within the financial niche, purely by chance. I mean, actually, I was doing financial business opportunity in sports betting kind of thing by chance. Those weren't the areas. I just wanted to be a copywriter, and I didn't have that foresight to look at the areas of what I actually thought was good. I actually just wanted to write. Yeah, I knew that much. I knew enough that I wanted to spend my time getting paid to write. I didn't look into where the options were there and kind of took what I can. I'm just kind of saying that in the sense that if that's what you prefer to do, if you don't want a niche, if you don't want to pick out a thing, you just want to get a job as a copywriter, I think we'll come to this in the format in a minute, but look around. What do you wish you could write? What customers do you recognize? That's probably where I'd go there. But I don't know about you, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't worry about niching massively.
No, you can. I mean, this all assumes you can plan your life, which you kind of can't. You can move in a certain direction and away from another, but like at 18, I mean, you want to be opening doors, not closing them, really. I mean, that's the point of being young, isn't it? Like, you could probably get it wrong 10 times and it's still not matter because you've got so much life ahead of you. So by the time you're in your 30s and 40s, if you get it wrong, you've got children and a mortgage and all these things. So you've got the chance to try things out. Just one thing I was going to add, Glenn, was, so we're coming across as old here, are we? Just nostalgic for our youth. What content do you consume? What do you like reading? What newsletters do you read? Because you could trace your interest about that. One of the worries I always get is people, if your answer to that is like marketing emails, it's like, what I like is marketing stuff, then I often think you're caught in a bit of a vortex there, because where does that lead you to marketing? But you don't really understand the customer yet. The customer of marketing emails is people who are interested in marketing. It's a bit circular. So if you, like I said, like I would look at okay, let's just take some examples from our own lives, right? I'm into endurance sports. You're into music. You're also into, you're an aspiring novelist, God, I don't have any other interests in my life. What
apart from endurance sports?
endurance, but like, so
Oh,
okay, what are the associated? I'm quite into cooking and stuff like that. What are the associated industries? So like sports supplements might be something that I would be interested in. You might, you know, we were talking the other day about how you could work in the musical industry. We were giving some advice to another copywriter on one of our calls, but you were talking at length about, okay, how could you, write PR for bands, or how could you write a blog for a record label or whatever? Because it's you have an understanding of how those markets work and how the people, the actors in those markets think about the world. So you need to identify things like that, because that's your edge. You don't know it yet, but that's your
ultimately
edge. So
the most successful way to write copy is to understand who you're writing to. That is just fundamentally it's in the top 3 things of, like, you need to know who you are writing to and be able to speak to them in their own terms. So if you can figure out, if you know that world, it's going to be 100 million times easier. Like, so if, for instance, when we were giving this advice to someone the other day about music, I kind of know the musical world. I've got a lot of friends who work in it. So it's easy for me to kind of spout that stuff off. If I'm working in finance and kind of worldview, I'm listening to political podcasts. I'm reading all that stuff. I'm listening to history. I'm learning that stuff, because that's where that's going to get me there. And if I'm into novels and what have you, and I wanted to write copy for it, I mean, I could spend a long time improving the marketing of the novel writing industry, but I'm going into that space. I'm looking, understand, and it becomes so much easier because I don't need to figure out exactly what that means. I've already got an inherent interest in it, so you've just got to look into it.
Actually, this is probably the best way of thinking about it. And we can expand this beyond, an 18-year-old making their first steps. I mean, so since I quit my, I quit my job, my proper job, in 2019. So it's 5 years I've been sort of working for myself now, starting my own projects and things like that. Everything that I've done since then, or I think there's 5 different companies I've started since then, of which this is one. But it's all involved markets. There was 2 markets: copywriters or people who consume financial information, because those are 2 customers, 2 audiences. That's a better word than customer, because that's too that's too much, too salesy. If anything, it's just an audience. It's it's a prospect that I really understand. So I've tried different things. I've looked at investor relations. We're in the process of launching a fintech business, but there's lots of things that are being changed around there, but the audience remains constant. And the fix, we're trying to do something different, but we understand copywriters because we are copywriters and we know lots of other copywriters, and we have something we think valuable to say to them. So you could actually apply this same set of advice to somebody who was going freelance or thinking of walking away from their job or whatever. And sometimes the niche could be combining 2 things. So it could be, okay, it's half term, I've got my kids inside. I mean, my wife's inside as well. I've not just left them there, because that would be mental. I could niche down and say, I'm gonna start a business or my audience is copywriters with small children. Like, how to fit it all in. Now, that might be better if you were a mom than a dad. It certainly in my situation, because I'm not the primary caregiver to my kids. Like, Gemma does that. Like, I'm just out here talking to you all day. But like, I could combine 2 things that are important to me. I could involve, my kids have asthma. I wouldn't want to monetize that, but I have an understanding of, what parents are going through when their children are very sick. Now, I wouldn't necessarily want to use that to sell something, but I've considered doing charitable work in that area of the world, because I know what it's like when you're sat on one of those wards and you look at the other parents, and it's like, the really sad part is just watching other parents just dying while they're watching their kids, that the kids, hopefully aren't dying, but they're not well. So like, what's going on in your life that you understand and you have empathy for, and you can bring to bear to talk to your audience in any way. It's all there inside you. It's not going to be in some marketing book. That's the one thing I would definitely say. Introspection and experience and empathy are going to help you far more than that.
Definitely. And give yourself like half an hour, give yourself an hour, give yourself a whole day to actually be a little bit what I would describe as waffy, and like just think, what do I like? Like, write it down, brainstorm it, actually take the time to do these things. You know why? Because most people won't. Most people will just listen to what it says online, on LinkedIn, on all these things, and just do the stupidest, easiest, most simple sounding thing. So don't do that. Spend some time, figure out who you are, what you love, what you want to do, where you'd like to be, and start writing that down. Nick, you said about there being a second part to this, in the sense that that's looking at the niche, that's looking at areas as a copywriter I can be within that niche. You mentioned the second part was format, and I think we can probably put in kind of like how do I best describe this? The types of copywriting you can do and the places in which you can work as a copywriter. You don't have to just be a freelance copywriter. You can work in-house, you can work in agency, all that kind of stuff. What do you think about when you talk about format?
Well, format, I'm thinking about sort of like specialization. So, emails, just as an instant, I know someone who's he's just great. He's good at lots of stuff. He's one of our mutual friends, but I won't name him. But he's a great email copywriter. He's brilliant at writing those emails and working out how the campaign all fits together. Okay, he doesn't exclusively do that, but I'd say it's probably one of his superpowers. So he's really, he could specialize in that. I write emails, but they're a means to an end for me. I'm better at other things. Similarly, format could be the video, direct mail, print. I once gave a talk with somebody who specialized in envelope copy, which is not really a thing now. Like, what goes on the outside of an envelope wasn't the only thing he did, but you can think about that as well and specialize in something. Subject lines, webinars, there's above the line stuff, radio adverts, there's all sorts of different things. You can get really, really good at one particular format. And that can be your way in. So you could work in one format for multiple niches. That's another way of thinking about it. I actually think that's not a bad way of thinking, because you can apply lessons across verticals, you would say. And that, just as a sort of slight tangent, in the financial industry, for instance, people do not get this, right? So the one of the big bugbears I have is that most new copy from new and up and coming writers is still what we would call HTML format. So it's written like an old fashioned sales letter, because that's what people fall in love with, the idea of the old sales letter, and you write a lot, it's a long piece and it sells something. But that's not how the industry works anymore. Now you need to write a script. It needs to be video first. You need to think about, will that copy fit above the video? How is this working? Am I bringing a sizzle reel in? Am I bringing a two-person present? I've got a presenter and a guru. Is it straight to camera? Is it documentary style? All these different things, all of which are formats in their own right that you could specialize in. Nobody thinks like that, even though all of these people who are interested in the industry understand that on some level or another. They still choose to write in what is now an outdated format. So it's like, well, how's this going to work on video? Well, I haven't thought about that. So you could specialize in that, become the best webinar writer. And I just write webinars. I'm the webinar writing guy. Don't write the other stuff. I mean, great. That's great. It's a way of so maybe specialization is the way of thinking about that. But that's a really underrated way of looking at the market. Definitely.
I think specialization is a much stronger. It makes me more excited when I hear people talking about niche and niching. It's something about it. It just makes me turn off. I don't know why. I'm just like, whatever. I've written copy for almost every niche under the sun. Like
Elvis's hair. Hang on. Elvis's hair. Tell me that story in 90 seconds. Go.
The Stanley Gibbons, you know, the people who sold like stamps, they're quite
Yes.
famous in a company. We had a deal with them at one point where they were selling Elvis's hair, authenticated strands of Elvis's hair when he got his hair cut going into the army, I think it was. So they could authenticate when he got that done. And they were like, I think they were £800 or something like that. Quite a high ticket for one strand. We had to sell them, and we sold two. I remember the punchline, the real punchline for me though, and it just goes to show that everybody's like, oh, what a scam. Like you suddenly said, they've gone up in value. So it was a sound investment. On that catalogue, though, I also now, and I wish I'd done this because it does interest me more, they were selling Lenin's death mask, which I was like, what the hell? But anyway,
that is niche. That is, like, we talk about niches. That is, okay, that's too niche. You can't specialize in selling.
Lenin's death mask.
You could specialize in selling memorabilia.
Definitely. Well, Stanley Gibbons ran a very successful business. I believe it still probably is going. In fact, I think I saw it mentioned on like a Dragon's Den or something recently. But yeah, I just kept niches. I've always been. I'm intrigued and curious, and we go back to the whole kind of underlying what makes a copywriter. I'm kind of interested in everything anyway. I am a bit of a jack of all trades, so I'll turn my head and go, all right, okay, who do I know who's into that? I'll maybe speak to them and figure that out. Or I always seem to have, it seems uncanny almost, where someone comes to me, oh, can you write this? And I go, oh, well, actually, I've got a great uncle who is into that. What would they think? So I'm always looking for customers. So I'm just not bothered about niching. But specialization, what you're talking about there, I think that's a much cleverer, that's a much smarter question. I've just been watching True Detective, the last series, and the character says she's a detective, and she says you've got to ask the right questions. That's a better question for me. Where should I specialize? What should my specialization be in? And then you can cover all sorts of niches. I think that's a more exciting way to think about it. And I wanted to raise this question, the reader sent in, because it is a concern a lot of copywriters have. Like, I'm pretty sure you won't take many scrolls to find like some kind of a niche discussion going on LinkedIn. Yeah, I just think it's a bit by the by for me, really. I think it's much smarter to think about specializing, like you just suggested.
So I think the too long didn't read of this episode would be. Did that make me sound young, Glenn?
I know you attempted it. If you'd have done it in portrait mode on a TikTok reel. And referenced Fernando Miguel and the fact that he's really good at dancing, which I can't imagine you even know what I'm talking about. But
you've lost me instantly. Yeah. The short version of this episode would be: forget niche and think about audience and specialization. Those things, and if you can find a way of finding an audience that you really understand and getting a speciality that really speaks to that audience, that's going to solve the niche problem, because it's a much more fundamental and deeper way of thinking about the issue than just sort of picking a topic. Do I want to write about A or B? Well, maybe you can write about both, but you've got to think about these other things. The only final point I'd make, Glenn, is, and this is specifically to someone who's 18, I'd try and get a job in-house. You need to try, and I think the 10,000 hours Malcolm Gladwell thing has been debunked now, but I'm gonna say it hasn't. You need to get your 10,000 hours in. You need to get your million words out into the market. I mean, as a working copywriter was in the industry that we started at, you probably write about 200,000 words a year, right? You're probably going to do 10 efforts of about 20,000 words by the time you add the whole campaign up and all the stuff. So you've got, in 5 years in the industry, you're going to write 1 million words, probably. Maybe it might take you 7 years or whatever, but like, you need to do that to find your voice and work your process out. And, I hate to be too blunt, but there's no shortcut around that. And trying to shortcut around it and say, well, I want to be really successful by the time I'm 20. You're probably not. You're going to be on the road to success, hopefully, but you're not going to be there yet. It takes time. That's kind of the point. That's why the rewards of copywriting are so great once you attain a certain level of experience and connection and success. because it's hard. You're not going to do it quickly. So I'd try and get a job in-house, even if you think I'm going to do it for 5 years and then I'm going to go my own way. Great, good luck to you. But you need to find a way of getting that number of words out to really find your voice. It's why so many novelists start out as journalists, I would say, because it might not be their novelistic voice, but they're getting the words out there. And you have to do that. You have to go through that process.
Yeah, it's one of the, I can remember this, the first time I ever spoke to Vicky Russ, probably like nearly a decade ago now, which is insane. But we were talking about the fact that you've got to spend your time in, like, so many people just want to skip to the cool part in inverted commas. Not that it's very cool to be alone in your room in a basement, you know what I mean? It's like, but everybody wants to skip that part. But the vast majority of the copywriters you know about today have done time, again in inverted commas, in-house somewhere working for people. Why? Because you get all of the support you need included in your paycheck, kind of thing. That's the thing. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to, but don't think you can do it by yourself. And if you're not going in-house, you need to, like, pay for support. I know that sounds like an old man saying you go to, like, buy this stuff, but you've got to create a support group. Then a really good support group probably isn't going to do that for free. Like, people aren't going to teach you about marketing or how to deal with customer services or what makes a good publishing decision, what happens to your copy, where that goes, all of that stuff. If you're not in the business, whereby you can learn it effectively for free or as part of your pay kind of thing, you have to find that elsewhere in the real world. That's a lot harder. That's why you end up taking longer. That's why you'll probably end up buying a load of courses to try and find, is there someone out there? Is there something someone knows that I'm not being told? And the answer is yes. But everybody in-house is being told it because that's day-to-day business kind of thing. So it makes us sound a little bit kind of long in the tooth and a bit kind of almost, I don't know, is there a bitterness there? I don't know. But I happen to enjoy the decade that I spent in-house and learning stuff. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without that. So don't poo-poo it. Don't ignore the fact that that is a very real and very valid option. But if you are on the freelance route, hopefully thoughts specialization over nicheization.
If you are freelance, you know, if there's a job where you're going to get a lot of copy out there into the marketplace that's maybe slightly less well paid than other work, that's worth taking, because you're going to get that experience of getting work out there. That's worth something. So I just did a masterclass on how to structure what you charge. And that was one of the factors that I said, if I'm going to get lots of work out there into the marketplace, I'm going to charge less for that if I'm in the early part of my career, because that's worth something. Just as, like you said, the training, it might be part of your paycheck. So you might be not paid brilliantly as a junior, but you're getting lots of tutoring. That's worth something. Similarly, if you're getting copy going out a lot, especially if it's being tested, you can see a result. That's worth something too. So all these things need to be factored in. Glenn, we're at risk of just becoming two old men in a pub saying things were better in our day, you need to work hard. But I do think between all of those different things, audience, specialization, and try and get the writing experience under your belt, those are the things you need to do to be successful, whether you're 18 or whether this is your second, third career and you're not 18, you're 38 or 58.
Only derivatives of ending in 8.
If you happen to be 26, useless this episode.
Yeah, if you're approaching 39, be silent for the year until you are 40. Then you can start pitching clients and getting new gigs and specializing. Until then, silence.
Right, let's wrap this one up. We'll be back next week with another episode of The Fix. As always, you can get in touch, send us your questions, send us your copy you want us to look at, and we'll do our best to answer your questions and review your copy. Aside from that, Glenn, I'm going to get back to my kids and see what's been going on in the hour I've been out here talking to you.
If you enjoy The Fix and want to get access to even more good stuff, join the Fix Accelerator today. Get access to special masterclasses from Nick and me, Watch expert interviews with industry legends, join live copy feedback sessions every week, and get connected to our very own private copy network. Visit thefixaccelerator.com for more information.